here you are in prison, and how long were you in prison?
3.5 years total.
So 3.5 years, you're in prison. Tell me about the moment in the midst of that situation, that condition, that dilemma, when you came to yourself.
I came to myself within the first 11 months before I was even sentenced. There was a young woman who was in the cell next to me, and I heard her one night crying through the vents. And we were just talking, and I was asking her why she was crying. There was the same woman, but there was two circumstances. And she was talking about her young daughter, and she was scared for her. Her daughter was about 3 years old. And she said that her mom had her daughter, and her mother was struggling within her substance misuse. And she was scared because the mother was living with the boyfriend who just got out of prison, who was a registered sex offender for harming young children. And I said, well, why can't you give her to your sister? Because she talked about her sister. She said her sister was also pregnant and struggling with substance misuse. I said, well, why can't you bring her to foster care? Because at this point, I'm still just learning about even foster care. Court systems, she was like, no, because I'll never get her back. And I would much rather her stay with my mother because she's too young to remember. And that completely broke my heart, because being involved in a drug conspiracy, I had always thought that people use drugs because they wanted to, right? That it was their personal choice. No one put it down their throat. They chose to do this. There was campaigns that said, don't use drugs, say no to drugs. And so when people did, it's because they wanted to. And then she had also told me a story where her father had been raping her, and he gave her heroin and told her to take the heroin and the pain would go away. And so this one young woman who shared these two stories changed my life, because my perception as to why people use drugs, and understanding that she didn't have a choice, right? It was, I know the love that my father had for me, I could never imagine him harming me. And the fact that this young woman was harmed by the person who I would think is supposed to protect her, and then misused her and gave her drugs for his own pleasure, was devastating. And so in those moments, it was like, okay, Topeka, I cried and I broke down and I said, how could I harm other people this way? And it was a level of accountability that I had to take and make. And that's where I came to making my own right with God. And so opposed to me continuing to fight my case, I decided to plead guilty because I was. And I went to federal prison. And so I like to—
Hold on 1 second, because you just blessed me. you just blessed me and got all down in my shando, as my mother used to call it. Because it is so powerful and so spiritually refreshing to hear someone say that I took accountability for what I did because it was the truth. Oh my God.
That's what God does to us. God does that, right? God, when you are actually struck by the power of God, and you understand.
And when she came to herself.
Yes.
That's a keep telling the story. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, please. That's fine.
What you said was so powerful. I just needed to stop and honor it. That's all.
I appreciate that. And so, through that journey, understanding there's difference between understanding levels of accountability, and then there's also the legal system and how they want to over punish and over sentence and discriminate based on race and gender and all these things, right? That's a whole nother conversation.
Right. Can I ask you a question? Because I want to make sure I get this in. Who loves you anyway?
Well, first, God. Let's start there. And God and my mom, my dad, my brothers.
How did they manifest that love?
How did they? They ensured me, yes, we were disappointed, right? We are. But we love you anyway, unconditionally. And through that process, I began to love myself because I understood that once I asked God for forgiveness, I was forgiven. And then once I began to repair the harm that I caused others, I was forgiven. And once I began to walk and move in my truth, then I can begin to love myself, because no one else could then utilize my narrative and tell my story. I decided that I needed to rewrite my story, her story, in the capacity that I wanted to tell that and be as powerful and embody that, to let people know that when I come back, when I hit the street, if you will, that I can move without shame or guilt. Because
with a sense of liberty to people.
Right.
I love in Galatians, this ain't a Bible study, but in Galatians, it really isn't. In Galatians chapter 1, Paul says to the people who are attacking him, he says, first of all, you know what I did. He said, first of all, nobody can tell my story better than me.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you what I did, when I did it, and I can tell you why I did it. Mm-hmm. And owning his own narrative. He says, don't let nobody tell your story for you. And that, when you just said that, tell it. Tell the whole story. Because when you tell it, nobody can use it against you. Because you can look at it, I already told you.